because that helps draw the professional slash other line, right? So that's great.
Good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So really important to ask these kinds of questions, like when can we follow up? Can we stay in your world? How would you like us to contact you? That's permission marketing, that one. Would you like our email newsletter? Would you like a call every once in a while? How often? So you want to get permission. You want to, see, the goal is like, yeah, we want to all get the sale, but to me, I think more importantly is we want to keep these prospects or these possible customers sort of in our world, right? If they're remotely interested in us and we feel there's a good vibe and we want to work with them, then we want to kind of keep them in our world until such time that they're ready to buy. Does that make sense? Like I often find, like, with car salespeople, like not everybody's looking for a car at a certain time, but stay in their world until such time that they're ready to buy, and then they'll think of you. That's why you see, like Emily, real estate agents. I have a real estate agent that is a colleague of mine, and she sends a mailing out every month. She's totally in my world. Oh, there she is again, another mailing, right? And she's not just promoting, buy my stuff, use me as a real estate agent, but she's also educating me and sending me valuable information about, buying a home. Really important. So I really encourage you, as part of the homework, because I don't know if we'll have time to do it on today's call, and that is take time to come up with questions you'd like to ask your clients. And then if you want, you can email me some of those. Because getting really clear on your clients is really going to help you really understand where they're at and how you're going to serve them. It's almost a shift in thinking. There's a doctor and a coach called Dr. Marilee Adams, and she developed this learner-judger model. And a lot of us, we kind of operate from either one, right? We have our inner judger and then our learner. And she says, why do so many find that although they've learned about the components of making your own company great, like leadership, collaboration, change, innovation, culture, that their knowledge isn't leading to the results they desire? Well, it's based on the fact that you've got to embrace what she calls question thinking, where it empowers you to close the gap between what you know needs to happen and how you're going to make it happen. So if you're ever faced with a problem, I just heard this actually, before you go to bed, ask your mind, subconscious is going to work overtime for you while you're asleep. Ask your mind, how am I going to make this happen? So if you have a challenge or a problem, how am I going to make it happen? Sleep on it, and then see what comes up the next day and write it down. So really important. You got to watch, your thinking. Have question thinking. So this is it's called the Judger Learner Model, and here it is. Here's a little bit more on it. Hopefully I don't blank out here. Oh, I can't open it. All right, so I'm not able to open it, but check out the Judger Learner Model. Another tool I like is the McKay, and that can't open it either. Okay, another model I like is the McKay 66, and I'll send you this link. Actually, I'll send you these links just for you to review. The McKay 66, he's an author and speaker. He's out of the U.S., and he's developed this tool where he asks each client 66 questions over time, like anything from where you're born to what sports you like to what are your hobbies to your birthday to your anniversary, what's your spouse's name or your partner's name or your kids' names, to what school you went to. Why do you think he wants to know that much about his clients? Why do you think he wants to know all that information about his clients?
More personalized interactions, maybe?
You got it. Thanks, Maimuna. It's totally about personalizing the sales relationships you have with the client. What Harvey Mackay, he's not only an author and a speaker, but he owns an envelope company out of Minnesota called the Mackay Envelope Company. And if you've ever, an envelope is an envelope is an envelope. There's not much difference between you and your competitors. Maybe you have a fruity flavored gum on the back of the envelope when you lick it. But at the bottom line is an envelope's an envelope. So what sets his company apart is the personal relationships he's got with his clients. As he would say, I know more about my clients than the IRS knows about my clients. So it's really important for you to sort of stock up on as much information as you can about your client, so you can serve them way better. You know them better. You know their like quirks and quirks, their tastes, their habits. You call them on their birthday and you sing happy birthday, or you send them a card. It's those little touches, those little things that you're going to do that's going to set you apart from your competitor. Because I guarantee people are not taking the time to do this. There's a video of him speaking at a telecom conference, and he's talking to these telecom professionals, and he shares a story about the Mackay 66, and I will email you the Mackay 66. He had a prospective client that was a huge consumer of envelopes, and he knew by asking questions of the client, like, what are your hobbies and what do you do on the side, that he was the hockey coach for his son's Little League hockey team. And his son was the goalie. And he heard word upon visiting this client's office that the client was in the hospital with his son because his son had just gotten hit by a car while on his bike. Wasn't seriously hurt, but hurt enough that he ended up in hospital. So what Harvey Mackay did was, as he tells the story, he went and got a goalie stick and had the Minnesota North Stars at the time autograph the goalie stick, and then he sent it to Abbott Northwestern Hospital in Minnesota. What happened then was the client was so touched by this, and the son elated, that he agreed to meet him, and then he got a little order, and then another order, and then another order, and they started to form the relationship until such time that they became, like $1 million account, one of their top accounts. So it's pretty cool story, I think. That's pretty cool, to say the least. So asking questions is really important. Gets the customer to talk, shows that you're concerned about someone. You got information where you can tailor-make a solution for the client. And again, it allows that learner mindset to flow. There's an openness. There's an openness towards solutions thinking. Any questions on the importance of asking questions? So it's all about you being able to sort of sell like a consultant and do solution selling. Which, just a little background on solution selling. It was founded in 1983, believe it or not, through Xerox. The Xerox sales training, and Mike Bosworth began licensing it in the late 80s. And he authored Solution Selling, Creating Buyers in Difficult Selling Markets. And he co-authored also Customer-Centric Selling less than a year later. And then it's been updated, and it really has revolutionized the sales process. So it's changed how we approach and sell to customers. So solution selling has become a bit of a generic sort of term now in the marketplace, but it's all about using that consultative style in your sales process or during the sales cycle. So it's really, it's about prospecting, diagnosing the customer's needs, crafting potential solutions, and establishing your value. I say establishing your value, it should come first now, and prospecting is always ongoing. But really establishing your value, building trust, engaging, educating your clients, getting them to come to you would be more the focus now. And then once you do see them, then you want to diagnose their needs and then craft potential, solutions and ideas for them. And, negotiate win-win solutions, continue to nurture the relationships and follow up. Really important to do. So any comments on solution selling? Do you like that idea? Can you integrate that into, your overall approach? Anyone? Okay, we got a quiet group here today. I think we're out shoveling the snow. All right, let's move forward. This is part 2 of today. So we've talked about step 3 in the 6-step sales process. So we've talked about research, knowing yourself, knowing your client. We've talked about prospecting and even avoiding prospecting, warming up the sales calls by speaking or writing or getting media or engaging the audience in your social media or by direct mail. So we've talked about ways to warm up the sales call so we don't have to cold call or prospect. But we've talked about prospecting. We talked then about the discovery process, your ability to ask really good questions, finding solutions, really getting to know the customer so well that you can, they're going to come to you. And they're going to be loyal to you because you have that relationship. That relationship comes before anything else, comes before any other transaction. So you have that solid relationship. And that's what the discovery session does. That's what getting to sit down and talk to your client, that's what it does. It solidifies the relationship. It identifies what their needs are, but then it also helps you to sort of really hone in on ideas and solutions that are going to help the client. It's going to also show you, do I even want to do business with this client? Are they a good client? Is that a good lead? So I always like to sort of get to know that person and see where the possibilities are. And some people, you'll call some clients, you'll get that appointment, and it just doesn't work. Stay in touch, though. Don't give up. Stay in touch, and you'll get a feeling after about 6 months or a year of marketing to them whether or not they're worth a huge commitment in terms of time and energy. You might have to kind of take the foot off the gas pedal with them and devote a little less time and energy and focus on the core clients you have. It's that old 80-20 rule. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients. So we're going to work on part 2 today, and that's now what, right? We know our client. We've gone in. We visited with them. We did our discovery session. We asked all kinds of questions. Where does it hurt? Now we got to work. We got to present and work the system, and that's what we're going to close off with. So when you're making a presentation, a couple of things to keep in mind. Your job as you present is to keep the audience engaged and be passionate. Don't be afraid to show a little emotion. Don't be afraid to be a little funny or controversial. Don't be, be focused. Be mindful of your time and your client's time. You don't want to run on and say too much. I really like to, just go in. Here's what we talked about. Here's what we're going to do. Here's our solution. What do you think? So you get a little bit of buy-in. Great, you like it. Here's the cost, and here's how we see it, developing from here. Here's what we're going to do. Here's our, here's our commitment to you and our terms and condition or just our agreement, what we're going to do. So make sure when you're making your presentations that you reinforce the benefits of your offering. Remember we talked about benefits? Anybody remember the 4 types of benefits there are? Product benefit, service, relationship, and brand benefits, right? So make sure you reinforce the benefits when you present. If you're going to use a PowerPoint, keep it short and use less slides. Make sure that your benefits are tailored. You got examples. Oh yeah, we helped this company and this is what we did. Especially like Miguel in the IT field, people want to know, hey, have you done this before? And don't mention, yeah, we did it for your #1 competitor, but give them another example of how you've helped somebody. Make it real. Talk about case studies. And here's what we're going to do for you. Here's what you're going to get. You always have to have the client in mind and what they're going to get from working with you. Make sure when you do present, keep it simple. Make sure it's coordinated. And you provide new ideas and solutions and a bit of a new perspective that the client wasn't really counting on. And again, don't be afraid to be a little bit funny or controversial. Why do you want to be funny? Anybody? Like, how does being passionate...
Keep it light, keep it real.
Yeah, keep it light and keep it real. Not only that, it breaks the ice, right? People are a little nervous of each other, and it kind of breaks the ice. It reinforces the relationship. How can you keep the audience engaged? And how does being passionate help? Anyone?
People engage to other people's passions.
Yeah. Your passion and your story, too. Remember we worked on developing stories last week? People get hooked by your story. It's like, wow, that's me. I can't believe, Dr. Irving went through that. I'm going through the same thing, and look at him now. Right? Really important. Why do you think keeping focus is a good idea when leading a sales presentation? To me, it's really about managing the time. You don't want to waste your customers' time. Right? And reinforcing the benefits, again, it just shows that you've got your customer in mind. It's not about you. It's not about the money you're going to make or the commission check you're going to get. It's really about, hey, customer, this is what you're going to get. This is what we're going to do for you. And then keep your presentation simple, right? A little humor, a little controversy, it goes a long way too. It gets people thinking, right? Again, it breaks the ice, gets them thinking. Wow, I didn't know that. Tell me more. They're going to want more, right? So really, really important. So you also, in your presentation, want to create a bit of a sense of urgency that, buy now. Don't waste time, right? So you want to really, as you work on your sales plan and how you're going to sell, you want to include this step and how you're going to handle this step, the presentation phase, into the equation. So you want to make your presentation compelling and set up an urgency to get the business. So that's where you really focus on the pain they're in now and what's the cost of not taking an action, right? You have to re-emphasize your value proposition in your presentation. You want to make sure that you've aligned your client's needs into the presentation so they're going to commit to moving forward. And that'll actually get the client to close the deal a lot more easier rather than you having to push, cajole, convince the client into closing the deal. Any questions on presentations before we move on? Basically, you've got to leverage. Sorry, was somebody?
Nope.
Okay. So you want to leverage the urgency in your client to make change, to get out of the pain they're in now, and move to that desired state that they want to get to, and that you're going to help them get to. So you really got to, you got to include that as part of the process. And again, you do that by reinforcing the value of your offering and reinforcing where they're at and what they're going to get when they work with you. I really need you to come forward and unmute yourself if you can, or write down your answers. These are some selling scenarios that you might actually encounter, and it's always good to sort of play them out ahead of time in your mind, so that when they do come up, you can go, oh yeah, this is what I got to do. So I want to have an open discussion here on this. Could happen. There's no external pressure or compelling event that's driving your client to make a change. How would you handle that when you're selling and talking and engaging with the client? There's no external pressure or compelling event driving the customer to make a change. Comments, questions?
You can create urgency or create opportunities, present them with information they didn't have to create this for the client.
Yeah.
Like there's a new investment opportunity. It's a pre-sale one day tomorrow. Here are the benefits. So you introduce something that they weren't thinking about, and the benefits to reacting quickly with urgency. Right.
So you want to maybe change the thinking to be more proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even try it out and see how it works for you. Don't like step into it gradually. Take that first step. What about this scenario? The internal pain points and cost implications facing the client don't hurt enough for them to make change a real priority.
But that would be the customer's perception, which can be changed by providing them more information. Like, for example, here's what we've done for other companies similar to yours and how they benefited.
Right. Yeah, so you're showing case studies and examples, and you're showing how other companies have benefited. So that's a great way to sort of overcome that selling situation. There's a few more here. How can you put a little more pressure on your clients to make that change? Again, what would you say? What would you include maybe in your marketing material or a sales letter or your presentation? What questions would you ask to remind the clients of the pain they're in with the way things are now and why working with you would benefit them? I'd ask questions directly related to what's the cost of not taking action? Where do you see the future? What would it look like if they, 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, if they didn't take action? And really get to their why. Cut to their why. What is it? What's their real reason for seeing you? What was it that drove them to want to meet with you and engage with you in the first place? What's that true reason they want to improve their life? So we all have a basic reason, but really, what's that real reason? Michael Irving states, give them some facts that show there is a need to address something and that there is a time limitation to taking action. Yeah, you might want to put a time limit on it. But really, you want to really connect with, the true why, the true inner motivation. And it might not even be what your client's telling you. It could go a lot deeper. Right? It could be something else. And then also share a positive scenario or two, a positive outcome. If you could have it look like this, what would that feel like? What would that look like? How would you feel? What if we could help you get there? Would you be interested in that? So really important to understand sort of the various scenarios you're going to come up with and come up against as your clients give you a little bit of pushback. Really important to do that. So benefits are really, really key. What if your clients don't really see the perceived benefits? That maybe your solution doesn't really satisfy their needs. What would you do then? Anyone?
You want to ask them what is it that they're needing that's not in the solution that you're providing. You want to find out more of what their needs are. If you haven't hit the mark, then you've got to ask them how.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's Matthew, right?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Who volunteered that one?
Michael.
Oh, Michael. Okay, thanks, man. Beautiful.
Michael. Yeah.
Dr. Michael. Yeah. What about this one? What are some benefits that, might get the client to respond? What would you do if your solution and ideas didn't meet your client's desires? How would you handle that? What if you say, man, I got the perfect idea and solution. I'm going to go in there and I'm all excited and it doesn't land. What do you do then?
Ask questions.
Ask questions. What do you want? What are you really looking for? What's really important? Where did we fall short? How can we improve? Yeah, get your client to give you input and feedback. I remember writing a commercial for a client, and oh man, I thought the creative was freaking phenomenal. I can email it all to you, actually. I still have the ad I wrote. The company was houseandhomeorganizers.com. So what they were professional organizers. So I was thinking house and home. Who's on first? Remember that Abbott and Costello routine? Who's on first? So I wrote an ad as a play on that. My office is a mess. Who do I call? Not who, how, right? And I thought the ad was brilliant. They didn't like it. So one of the challenges is, entrepreneurs, one of the challenges as a copywriter is don't fall in love with your client. Don't fall in love with your stuff. Don't fall in love with your creative. So you really have to kind of let go and say, okay, great. Back to the drawing board here, right? Yeah. Some others.
At what point do you just make the call that the client is not a good fit? You're wasting too much energy, too much time. You're spending too much energy and too much time than you should be, and your focus could be better. You could be getting more bang for your buck with another client or clients.
That's a great question. Let's throw that out to everybody. Where do you, at what point do you kind of give up? Because they say it takes, 9 to 11 contacts to close a deal.
Yeah, I'm actually, I was looking at the same thing kind of last week as I'm spending a lot of, time on certain contacts where I know other ones will be more cost effective. So what I did was I kind of backed up to, okay, what are my key priorities, in terms of my business? So, I have 2 areas that I really like to focus on, and I know that those ones will be the most profitable. And also the ones that really are aligned with my values and what I want to offer with my business. So I made a conscious decision to, keep focusing on this kind of smaller project because I know that I could help them with all the other things anyway. So it was almost like a strategic, mindful decision. However, I thought in the future, I'm going to be really conscious about those sorts of projects if it doesn't align with my big, the big picture value, but still consider them. So I don't know if that helps you, just looking at your overall priorities and how, that client could possibly fit into your sales funnel.
Yeah, I think you have to rely a little bit on your gut feel, Emily. I recall and then you got to ask those hard questions. It's like, look, it seems like I'm spinning my wheels. Like, I don't want to waste your time, and my time is valuable too. You have to, put your needs into play. And just say, look, what's it going to take for us to really get your business? What do you need? Are you serious about this? Are you real? Sometimes you have to ask those tough questions. I remember when I had my radio show, for example, in the early days of it, I guess it was like year 2, 3, and 4, I would market to this ad agency in Ottawa, and they had the EDC account. So the EDC is the Export Development Corp. They help companies export and import merchandise and services to other countries through offering some sort of insurance and consulting. And man, I went after her pretty, like almost every year at the beginning of the season to see if she, got the go-ahead from the EDC to be part of my small business radio show, right? Perfect fit, you'd think. And she was kind of lukewarm at the beginning, and then I sent a mailing campaign and followed up a little bit more. I engaged a little bit more. She got mail. She got gifts, like a mug and a pen I would send and a Christmas card. And still, the year after, nothing. Very lukewarm. And I think after about 3 years, I just said, look, is this really, do we have a chance? What do we have to do? We just agreed to part ways. It wasn't going to happen with her. She wasn't going to give my little radio show the time of day. But they would advertise in like Canadian Business Magazine or Profit Magazine or the Globe and Mail, but my little radio show, not for her. So I think you have to use your gut feel a little bit and then ask those really tough questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. So let's kind of close up today, but you got to plan for this too. Like your client might feel that the risk of your solution is too high for them. Like the risk is too high, and there's not. You haven't proven yourself, so you might face that the risk of taking action is perceived as too high, and then if they fail, the cost of failure is going to be like, whoa, too much to bear. Or the client doesn't have the authority to sign the deal. Has that ever happened to anybody, any of you? This is why it's really important to ask those tough questions. Don't be afraid of asking those tough questions. Because the worst thing you hear is no, and the worst thing that'll happen is that client or prospect, not a good fit. So it's like, thank you, Lord. You set me free. On to the next.
David, you just touched on something that we deal with quite often, and that is the risk and the fear factor of making that decision and flipping the switch, so to speak. We deal with that all the time, and sometimes it's a challenge depending on the individual. Some people are also not very good at making decisions.
Yeah.
So if anyone has some suggestions or insight on that, I'd love to hear it.
I would do like a try us out, try a little bit, see how it's working. So,
yes.
Break the solution down into bite-sized pieces, and then have them grow into it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, very good.
Or a money-back guarantee, if you can.
Very risky in our business.
I know it is risky in your business.
Could ask if there's anyone else that needs to be involved in the decision.
Yeah. Or do they need to speak to some of your other clients, Miguel?
Yes, we've done that in some cases as well, done either through webinars or even bring them on site to another client just to make them feel comfortable.
And did that work?
It drags on the sales process.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work, no. It seems to drag on the sales process.
Right. I'd still kind of think of offering that, but then the other thing is, have them try you out a little bit. See what you think first, and then let's grow into it. Because sometimes it's really hard for somebody to commit everything, so they might give you a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Just to see how it's working out for them.
Yeah.
What's also worked when I worked in software before, we used to get people who were sort of senior level executives who were colder prospects, invite them out for a lunch, but that's essentially like a mastermind group, so you'd invite people in the same industry, like, I don't know, Microsoft and Apple and whatever, but smaller scale. So it would be 10 people at a senior level for lunch, and it would be a networking opportunity for them, so they would have the same pain points. So it's like a mutual therapy where they bond over them, and then you're there, the solution provider. So it ends up warming them up to you for providing the service for free, and it's a relatively inexpensive lunch. And it's something they would say yes to, whereas they typically may say no.
Right.
And it's easier these days with LinkedIn to make those kinds of connections.
Yeah, definitely. That's great.
Yes, very good point. Actually, we're just in the process of setting up what we call lunch and learn. We may even do it as a brunch and learn, but yes, a very good suggestion.
Yeah, and bring in your suppliers too.
Yes.
Into the mix. Say, look, here are my suppliers. If you're worried about, anything, here they are. We're well backed, I know I brought in suppliers in the past in a different industry that I was in, and I felt that to be really helpful because then it wasn't just me. They got to see who was behind me, who's on my team. Also really important. So you want to be prepared for these sort of scenarios. Client doesn't have authority to sign the deal. Minimizing the risk, so your client would be open to using your product. So, Miguel, minimizing the risk. And then also, approaching a client you've been calling on to lead you to the proper contact and decision maker. That you're not talking to that decision maker. I know that's really frustrating. You've been talking to the gatekeeper, and that gatekeeper can't make a decision if their life depended on it. That's just their personality style. So you really want to get them to, in to say, hey, who's that proper decision maker? Finally, what would you say to a client that's using your company to sort of compare to their vendors without losing your cool? They're just using you just to kind of check to make sure their current vendor is not stringing them along. How would you approach that situation? I always ask for a quote to see the quotes, and also again asking questions. Where do we, just being direct with the client. Are you comparing us to who you're currently working? Because if you are, then I'll tell you what. If you're looking for a better price, then let me see your best price and let me see if I can match it. If I can match it or beat it, then I'd love to do business with you. But if you're playing me off against who you're currently working with, I don't think we're a fit. Right? Because you could become the current vendor. Imagine your client, is stringing you along and comparing, you to their other prospective vendors. I don't know. Not sure I want to really work with a client like that. And lastly, you got to get prepared. How do you take a buyer to take an action? And get agreement. What are the steps you're going to do? What steps will you employ to get them to take an action now or get that agreement so they'll be able to make that buy and sign off on the deal? you want to be prepared for that as well. That ends this week. Do we have any questions? Any other comments? Anybody? You're all quiet. I think we're...
Has everyone had their coaching sessions with you, David?
Some have. Matthew and I've got Thomas tomorrow, Miguel tomorrow as well. And Andrea, we had a good one. Andrea, we had a nice...
David, it's Evelyn here.
And Andrea, we had a nice session on Friday, so don't forget to book your coaching sessions. I gave you my current schedule. I'm going to offer my coaching until the end of March, so if you're not ready yet, don't worry about it. We got till the end of March. We got 2 whole months. Is that fair for everybody?
Yep. David, it's Evelyn here.
Hey, Evelyn.
The information, the information you're sharing is great. It's and I'm quiet only because I'm just trying to take it all in, and I'm not really running a business now, so I'm just kind of learning and just taking it all in.
Okay.
I'm not so sure what to say. I think that's more what it is for me.
Okay.
But I'm listening, taking it all in,
All right.
writing notes.
You're great, and you and I are now friends on Facebook too. So, we're connected in other ways, playing Scrabble. So thank you for that.
There you go. But I'm losing.
I know. Well, there's next game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today was really about the two steps in the sales process, the Joy of Six, which is, your ability to, ask good questions. And we've seen in these scenarios how important it is to ask those tough questions. Because I'll tell you, if your client's not really on board with you, I don't know if you really want that kind of person as a client. That's the magic, I think, of being self-employed. We can decide who we want to work with. So sometimes you have to ask those tough questions, and sometimes you have to let those prospects or clients go that aren't really serving you. Because we know, I think everyone here in our heart of hearts, we have an idea, a business that really helps people, and we have proof that it does. So there's definitely a clear benefit to our service. And if someone's not appreciative, I don't know. To me, it's like, you got to get them to realize that, you know what, you're worth working with. You're going to do what it takes. You're going to be there. You're going to walk with them. You're going to help them get from point A to point B and where they're going. And you're going to be there to guide them. And I think if we come from that place, from our true heart, from our true, beingness, that we're here to serve and here to help someone else, and we're going to do our very best, then we deserve the very best from our clients too. So, maybe you got to look for that moving forward in clients. So really important to ask good questions and make really good presentations. 10 minutes max. Keep it short, keep it simple, have a little fun with it. But, respect time and then have time after for these question and answers that might come up, because you might get some pushback like what we've just seen here. Okay? Anything else to complete? So next week we're going to wrap up our 6-week series. I have a little bonus for you. I have a little webinar that wraps it up. It was an interview I did on a previous sales webinar, the same program I did in the summer. It's an interview I did with Steve Stunt. Steve is a colleague of mine. He's a business coach, and he was also former host of the Entrepreneur Hour on Chum, when Chum wasn't sports, when it was oldies. I think they were playing oldies at the time. So I'll send you all the link to that webinar and interview I did with Steve, and it'll kind of wrap up the overall Joy of Six and the Monday morning clinics. So I'll send that to you after next week, and we'll be back here next Monday at 9, and I'll send you, by next week, I'll send you the next availability for coaching. Is that fair?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Be safe today. Drive carefully.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.